Well, another Monday morning is here. I hope you're going to have a good week. And I'm going to jump right into this adventure that I got into with this Ford Ranger. Um, this actually had, it was years ago when people were still having the cell phone providers put cell phones in their cars, and that's what had happened here. This guy had taken his brand new Ranger to the cell phone store and they had installed a cell phone, but after they installed the cell phone, the vehicle wouldn't start. And so what we found out was this fuse right here was blown, and I put my test light in here, just kind of rested it in there very gently. That one there just had LEDs in it. I like to have a regular bulb, but this LED one worked okay for this job. See how that's burning green? If there was power there, it would burn red. And I had it sitting, I had this thing sitting right here in the fuel pump relay. And so I was checking right here. Excuse me, I was checking right here. And I was finding a ground, right, through here, and the way that I determined there was a ground there was we have the initial, before we turn on the key, we replace the fuse. There's battery power here all the time. This basically turns on the PCM power relay, and it powers up every solenoid that the engine controller is responsible for, one of those being the fuel pump relay. Alright, so let's see what happened when we turned on the key. Pow! It blows the fuse, because you notice I've got the relays closed here. And when I close the relay, this thing found ground somewhere. And well, I need to be able to find this ground without the fuel pump tricking me out. So whenever you're looking for a short to ground this way, you need to remove the component, because you're going to be reading the ground coming through it. So we went ahead and pulled the disconnected fuel pump relay. We still showed a ground right here. Now you can, you can check it right there. I just had it short remains, but we were actually checking it in this spot right here. Okay, so with the fuel pump disconnected, we still have a ground somewhere on this circuit. All right, so we disconnected. Of course, later I had disconnected that. I'm gonna leave this, just act like I had that not there, because you're not seeing it, but that ain't a big deal. Disconnected 309. We still had a short. And then we disconnected the inertia switch, and right there, and after we disconnected the inertia switch, the short was gone. Okay, so you remember we disconnected this one, and the short was still there, but when we disconnected the inertia switch, the short went away. Okay, there's the truck body, so it's inside the truck between the inertia switch and the connector where it leaves the truck, which you saw that. Alright, and this is what I found. This harness right here goes under the carpet. Look at that screw where they mounted that cell phone. Went into the body of the car, breached the fuel pump wire, which is pink black. If you'll notice, pink black is the color of the fuel pump wire, and that's where they drilled right through there. So that ground went into this wire and popped that fuse and kept the fuel pump from running. And so that was the short, was in that area right there, and that's what we wound up looking at. Well, alright, that didn't take long to zip through that, did it? You can go back and review it if you need to. I found out that these two air tools were desperately needed to get in tight spots. We had one time we had a whole bunch of impact wrenches at the school, and I didn't have my personal impact wrench at the school, but at the time the one that I had was worn out anyway, the one I owned at home. And we had to take the balancer off of seemed like it was a Ford Ranger or something, and there was not an impact wrench anywhere in that shop that would spin that bolt out of there. We even put a breaker bar on the bolt and let it, bump the starter over, let it, the handle of the breaker bar getting against the frame, because whenever you spin the starter with the breaker bar against the frame, the engine is actually trying to break the bolt loose, and it wouldn't even break it loose. And so I went on the tool truck, and I went ahead and bought one of these, and boy, would that thing ever bust that thing. It broke that thing loose and spun it right on out of there. And furthermore, from here to here is not that far, and you can get in a tight spot. I don't know if you've ever been frustrated by your impact wrench being too long to go in a place where you needed to do something. This one here is also an impact wrench made by Ingersoll Rand. It cost about $350, and I just loved this thing whenever we got it. And the cool thing about it was whenever you're taking those spark plugs out of those 3-valve 5.4s, you can use this thing to spin those things out of there, and it just snatches them right out real good, which is better than screwing them out slow and leaving part of the plug down in there. Think about it. You got nothing to lose anyway. And every time we used an impact to take those plugs out, we got every one of them out without an issue. I've talked about that before. This is a good tool you can build. I actually showed this before, but I like to go there. You can get a plain old fuel pump gauge that reads pressure on one side and vacuum on the other. They sell them at the parts store every day for not much money. And you can drill through one of these 18 millimeter 1.5 thread pitch plugs that comes in a new catalytic converter. You can also buy these from Summit Racing, these plugs that are just made to stop up an oxygen sensor hole. So basically what they're for. Drill through there, tap some threads, put a brake bleeder in there, make sure that air can pass through, and you can screw the oxygen sensor out, put this in there, put your gauge on it, and see if you've got exhaust back pressure. You can buy kits for this, but I like to build stuff so that I can use my skills to create wealth. See, that's what you're basically doing. Whenever you trade your wealth for money, you're creating wealth. When you build something, you're also creating wealth. See, so I mean, I wanted a way to check the exhaust back pressure without having to, buy one of those tools, and just wanted to see what I could do. Sometimes I just want to see what I can do. This is good because you got a place that's made for a hose. I would get some of that orange silicone hose though to connect to your vacuum pressure gauge. And the plain old gauge you measure engine vacuum with, the other side of that goes up to like, several pounds of pressure. I forget what it is, 30 psi or something. It may not be that much, but the long and short of it is it's made for checking old-fashioned fuel pump pressure or engine vacuum, whichever you want to check with that gauge, and you can connect it to this. You're not supposed to have any back pressure at all. If you've got as much as 5 psi of back pressure on that exhaust, that's going to make that motor not run good. And I've run into that before, where they'd say it doesn't run like it used to, and I checked the back pressure and saw 5. Take the catalyst off, it's all clogged up, and it seems like it would be worse than 5. Even 2 pounds of pressure is too much. So you don't want any back pressure at all that's measurable the way I'm talking about. Now the reason for the washer on a spark plug is to conduct heat out of the plug. I talked about this one time before. The boy just threw the plug down in the hole, and when he went to stuck his socket down in there and hoped it would start okay, he got it in about this far, and he just basically crossed it up in the aluminum threads. He didn't say anything to anybody. Lady came back the next day, and we had, right after we put these brand new plugs in there, with the engine skipping, he had managed to get the other 3 in there without messing up. This one he messed up. He knew it wasn't right, because when you put the coil, it was down in a well. When you put that coil wire on there, it was jacked up and crooked, not in there right. But he just let it out of there like that. It burned that spark plug up within a day, because this washer was not against the head to conduct the heat out of the plug, because the plug gets really, really hot, and it needs to be able to conduct its heat out into the head and through the cooling system jacket. Now this right here was something I did. There was a 6.8 liter 2000 model Ford van that blew a spark plug out, and I had to, rather than re-tapping the hole, which I didn't have to do, I looked down in there with the borescope and found out it was okay. I got a 14 millimeter 1.25 thread pitch, 1.25 thread pitch tap, and I opened the throttle body, put the air blower in there, turned the engine over really slowly until there was air blowing out that hole, right? You can also put grease on the tap if you want to do that to keep the filings from falling in there. But with that air blowing out that hole, I put that tap down in there, and it's real hard to see up in that van, way off up in there. And I screwed that tap down there and straightened those threads out. All right. So I went down in there as deep as I could and come back out, pulled the tap out of there, screwed the plug in, but I wanted to make sure the plug was going all the way down, so I put some Prussian blue. You can buy this stuff at the parts store. Permatex makes it, and it's a marking compound. It doesn't set up. It's just always a greasy blue stuff. And whenever you screw it all the way down and then take the plug back out, you can tell if it went all the way down and made contact with the seat. And that's what I was looking for, because when it's in that hole down in there, you cannot tell if that thing has actually gone all the way down. It may feel okay, but you just may be feeling resistance on the threads, and I wanted to make doggone sure. And this right here was a non-negotiable, yes you did get there, right? Now this is dealing with dogs and other critters. This lady had this Dodge Caravan, so she comes in with a check engine light on, and I look under, we get an oxygen sensor code and heater code and all that, there, and the dog has completely chewed these wires into. Why dogs and other critters do this, I don't know. But so we went ahead and replaced this oxygen sensor. Or we might have fixed the wires. I don't think we replaced it the first time, and it wasn't chewed up as bad. This was the second time, and we went ahead and just fixed the wires that had been damaged. And the next time the dog went this far and screwed it up like this. So I put another oxygen sensor in there, which had to come up go through the floorboard on that Dodge. And then I got a steel plate, and I bolted it to the frame and went up under here and attached it to the to the floor of the vehicle somehow. I don't even remember how I did that. But that steel plate made it so that dog could not get to that O2 sensor wire. So that basically removed that as a problem. There was a Ford pickup that came one time that I worked on at the Ford dealership, and the neighbor's dog had chewed a big wire harness. I'm telling you, this thing was like an inch in diameter with a bunch of wires going through it. He had chewed it in two, and the guy had it brought in on the hook. His neighbor's dog did it, and so I got under there and I took all of those wires, stripped those harnesses back, fixed every single wire, because that harness was really expensive. But I fixed every single wire, and there was a couple of hoses the dog had chewed on too I had to replace. I don't remember what they went to, part of the evaporative system or something. And so I got all of that fixed, got it all straightened out, taped it all up, and even tie wrapped it up to kind of get it out of the way. And the next time that vehicle came in, that dog had chewed that harness in two places on each side of where I had tie wrapped it. And so we had to just replace the harness that time. That was a super expensive repair. I don't know if it was covered under insurance or not, but I would have had me a talk with that neighbor about his dog making a mess out of my truck if I was that guy. I mean, I don't know exactly what you could do about it, but he could probably take it in a small claims court or something, but that's ridiculous. He paid us $900 to fix it the first time because of all the work and all the time it took. The next time it was even more expensive than that. Don't ignore these cracks. See this Kia timing belt? These things, if you don't change the timing belt when you're supposed to, if it says you need to change it at 88,000 or 108,000 miles or whatever, you better change it before then, or you're going to be beside the road with bent valves or a destroyed engine, particularly on a Kia. Now, the ones that are non-interference engines that don't bend the valves, it'll put you down, but it's always best for you to be the one to decide when the timing belt is replaced instead of letting the timing belt decide. There was that one girl I talked about that came in there to have something else done to her little SUV, a little Isuzu or something. I can't remember what kind of vehicle it was. Anyway, I told her, I said, I can hear that timing belt slapping that cover. We better put you a timing belt on there. And so I ordered a timing belt. She said she'd bring it back the next day. She never showed. And so about a month later, she came back and says, I should have listened to you and let you replace my timing belt because it jumped when I was turning into Walmart about 3 weeks later, and I had to pay $1,500 to get the head pulled off and the valves all done and all that. So, she didn't attach any significance to the fact that if the timing belt broke, and me trying to tell her, how it is. Some people are hard-headed. This right here is the wet carpet in a Dodge. This is you can find this. You got to pull a cover off to see this, but you can see how that water, like on if you pour your coffee too slow, sometimes it'll run down. But that water was, when they ran the air conditioner, and it wasn't when it was raining, it was only when it's hot and there's running the air conditioner, the carpet would get wet on the passenger side floorboard. And so this water was running right in here, just like that right there. And so what we had to do to fix that was blow all that dry and smear silicone real heavy all over this so that water could never make it into the car again. And of course you got to pull the carpet out of the car and hang it on the fence and let it dry out so that it doesn't mildew and cause issues underneath there and all that. But that was the wet carpet on the Dodge. Now this right here, 98 F-150, it came in. Look at that rusted off thing. This thing came in there for an EGR code, and if you remember, the on these 98 model vehicles, on the driver's side at the back of the exhaust manifold is where the EGR gets its gas to go to the EGR valve. On this one here, it had a P0401 code, but it also, I could hear an exhaust leak. And when we got under the truck, the reason it wasn't getting an EGR was because there was not enough pressure to push it through the pipe going up there. And anyway, trying to remember. This was on the, seemed to me like this could have been on the other side. I don't remember. This has been a while back. But this is how I fixed that. We didn't have time to go. You know how much trouble it is to drill this thing out, pull the exhaust manifold off. You may break these off while you're at it. And all I said, well, we can do better. This other one wasn't in bad shape, but that one there, it just melts it away. And all that. This truck had an old truck, had a lot of miles on it. But I built this thing. This is that plate that comes on a new air conditioner compressor. And I took that plate, drilled a hole there, and brazed a nut right here, and put this Allen wrench in there because it would go over the top. Brazed it right here, brazed the nut on there, and then I let this screw this bolt up through here, and it just pushed right up in here against the and I actually had, seemingly like I put something on here so it wouldn't go through the hole. It was in this collar. But anyway, it clamped that thing up, and I told him to bring it back the following semester and we'd fix it, you know, the old-fashioned way. And he's still driving that truck with this deal on here, like this. Well, after all of that, I found out that you can get something to do the same job from Amazon to do the same kind of fix. Isn't that amazing? They make this specifically for that, which I thought was just totally amazing. And you can see how it would work. You know, you just clamp that thing in on there the same way that I built this thing. And this stuff, none of this stuff was in the way, you know, but it worked really good. Anyway, I just thought you might find that interesting. This is when safety glasses saved my eyeball. This girl was grinding on some stuff there at a bench, and I had these really good safety glasses on. They were prescription safety glasses. And after she got through, I noticed there was something on my glasses that I couldn't wipe off, and I pulled the glasses off and looked at them. That right there was right in front of my eye. If I had been standing there watching that girl without eye protection, I would only have one good eye right now, because that whatever was going that fast that knocked that chip out of those lenses. And those are some doggone good safety glasses. And I went to the eye doctor where I got these prescription safety glasses and asked him about getting another lens because the scratch warranty had expired on these. And he said one of these lenses was $325. And so I was thinking, I had no idea. If you look at the frame and the cost of the lenses and all those, about the $750 pair of safety glasses. But the thing about it is, they were worth it. My VSP insurance paid for them, you know, because I can get a pair of glasses every so often without insurance. But anyway, just keep that in mind. You know, you've only got one set of eyes, and there's no way you can see that stuff coming whenever it flies off of something. And that was just, I always use this to show my students how important it is to wear safety glasses. Is, you know, even if they're hot and they fog up and you just don't like having them on your face, don't be stupid. You can lose an eyeball, and there's no reason you should. All right. I used to teach my students how to test different types of relays, and I had these all numbered. See that? That's the old Toyota style. That is the that little small ISO style, and then this is the regular ISO, and this is the GM, and then that's the old Ford relay. See, they needed to be able to know how to check different kind of relays except just the ISO. That's okay, that's fine, but if you can't check the rest of them, you're in a pickle. And so they would, and I had them all numbered, and I would make them, you know, check each. And just because the relay clicks doesn't mean that it'll carry a load. So you have to have it connected to a load so it'll turn the load on and run the load, and the load needs to be about as much as whatever the relay is pulling on the vehicle. And I discovered the hard way that whenever you hear a relay click, that doesn't mean it's able to carry current. I've seen them click and have voltage drop problems that would, if you use the trouble tree in the shop manual, it'll lead you around Robin Hood's barn for an hour, and then you wind up finding out you should have went ahead and replaced the relay to start with, you know. And this is a disaster in the making right here. What somebody did when they put the caliper back on, they didn't pay attention to the hose, and they twisted the caliper around and just put it in place and put the bolts in and tightened all that up. But this hose was twisted like this right here because of the way they put the caliper on. And you notice because of the way it was, when you would turn the wheel, this would get against the axle, I mean the CV axle. And how much more of this would have to happen before they blew that line and lost about half their brakes? Even on a system that's got crisscross, you're going to lose about half your brakes. This right here is how a simple rookie mistake can cause a delayed reaction time bomb of a problem. This is something everybody needs to pay close attention to. And have a great week, and let's be careful out there. And by the way, that's not me. That's just an interesting looking roadster I saw when I was sitting at a traffic light one day with this old gray-haired guy about my age driving. And anyway, I hope you guys have a good week, and I appreciate you tuning in.